Welcome, my friends, to the Quantum Shamans presented by Moshi, the Ministry of Shamanic Healing and Integration, bringing you insights into the spiritual secrets of the mind and the universe around you. We are here to help you on your spiritual journey and path of healing. And now your hosts, David and Anthony.
Welcome to Quantum Shamans presented by Moshi. This is episode number 10, and we're so excited to have B from Yellow Brick Studio. Welcome, B. We're so glad you're here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. David, would you mind reciting the Moshi vision statement?
Absolutely.
From your memory.
Yes.
I know you can.
The Ministry of Shamanic Healing aims to help individuals heal from spiritual maladies stored as energy in the subconscious that manifests in the form of trauma, PTSD, physical illness, mental health issues, and addiction. These practices include, but are not limited to, yoga, breathwork, meditation and mindfulness practices, Reiki, sweat lodge ceremonies, sensory deprivation, sacred plants, and any other rituals we collectively decide to establish. We hold ritual ceremonies for our community to heal collectively in a safe space, as well as individual ritual healing tailored to the members of our collective for the purpose of intensive inner work. Our most important responsibility is to help our members integrate their collective and individual experiences in order to ameliorate their spiritual maladies and spread love for the betterment of mankind. Our belief is that our collective consciousness is God. Every living organism has a purpose and is essential for homeostasis. From the single cell organisms to the observable universe, we are all equally important. We all deserve love, respect, peace, harmony, and forgiveness. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. Love conquers all.
You did it, man. Yay!
Perfection.
My man's. I knew you could.
Wow.
I knew you could. Hi, B.
Hi.
I'm always so happy to be in your presence. You have a wonderful energy field, and I just adore you. Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, so I mentioned in the beginning, you're from Yellow Brick, or you are Yellow Brick. You can put that however you want to. Tell us about what Yellow Brick is and what Brittany does.
Okay, so Yellow Brick is what your mission is kind of like the mission, right? Like I feel that like love is the primary vibration of that space. We do lots of things, lots of collective things. It's so much more than a yoga studio. I feel like it's a cop-out just saying it's a yoga studio. But the way that I understand yoga or work with yoga is yoga is yoking yourself with God, yoking yourself with the divine, yoking yourself with the one thing that is everything. And however you get there, whatever path you take, whether it's movement, breath work, ritual, plant medicine, conversation, dance, we kind of hold space for that. So it's a yoga studio with yoga being you finding God within yourself.
Yeah, it's one of the tools, one of the many access points into higher consciousness. Yeah, it's a beautiful, I've been there. So I was over at the studio, and I can say it was a very lovely experience to be there. It was just us. It was just you, me, and Mary there. But the energy is palpable in there, and I could tell how I feel things. That it's like a house of healing. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like a lot's happened in there, and a lot of people have moved forward and through potentially like difficult things in their lives and things. I can sense all that kind of stuff, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful.
It's the greatest compliment when you said that, someone who works or lives and exists in these like subtler realms of being in this experience, like for you to walk in and feel that, like it is a great compliment, because we have such amazing people come in and share their magic, and like every yoga class there is a shift in someone. So yeah, like it was a great compliment to hear that from you. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I love to tell you how it is.
Yeah. You fixed my shoulder that day, by the way.
Good.
Well, that's my first time ever saying it and claiming it, that it's fixed, because I still am like
looking for it.
I'm like, wait a minute, like there's no way. Like it was a long time.
How long?
It was probably 10 years.
10 years, wow.
10 years on and off. that I've been having this shoulder situation. And I'm just going to tell the story, obviously, the people were here in it. But I've been having this situation, and I've worked it out through movement and like yoga, and I've had Reiki, and I've had other energy healing, crystal, chakra balancing, lots of things. And I've always had this like temporary relief like come, but it always found its way back to me. Like I've always I'm like, okay, here we are, we're dealing with it again. And because I do energy work too, like I know that the right side is my masculine side and my shoulder is like my heart stuff. So I've always kind of put it with like when my dad passed 10 years ago is kind of like right around when this started to show up for me. So I've always knew it was something like that I needed to release maybe around that. And when you came in, I wanted to mention it to you because you were like, you asked me something where I knew you knew it. I knew you'd seen that it was there because you said something to me, but then we kind of moved past it. And then right before you left, you said, "Can I see your right hand?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And you just closed your eyes for a second, and I felt like the energy like being like witnessed. And then when you were like, yeah, you had this like male presence. I don't remember exactly what you said, but you're like, I just kind of like moved the energy through your arm. I'm like, I fucking felt that. Like,
yeah.
I felt you move it or like see it or like just give it some light. I don't know. And since then, I don't know, how long ago was that? A couple, maybe like more than a month. Maybe 2.
Don't ask me. I don't know even what day it is.
Yeah, we just have no sense of time.
It was recent, but not like yesterday.
Yeah, it was like maybe 2 months ago. Yeah. And I every day I'm like,
yeah,
you sure you're
Stop
not there?
looking for it.
I know, right? This is me claiming it now. When I was like, when I said it out loud, it felt like, okay, that's my truth now. It's gone.
It is the truth.
It's gone. So thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for being open to receive.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about. Like nothing's like accidental or anything. Like we run into each other and we heal each other. That's really how it works. I felt like certain levels of healing and energy connection being in your space. As like we were talking about a little bit before we started, we were talking about like in our tradition, the Paco tradition, we connect to something called sea key lines, which are a grid system of living energy. And all of us are connected into this energy, just some of us are more aware or less aware. But when we come together, like I always know wherever I'm going, wherever Mary takes me, she's my great leader. She takes me to places and I know we're going to connect into energy lines. So when we're in that space, I'm picking up, I'm feeling all of your energy, all of the healing you've been through, people in your space, like I was just saying. And then so I start to be able to sense in a really deep way in there. And that's when I was aware right away. As soon as I walked in, I could feel that. I could feel, oh, she's got blockage coming in the right shoulder. And it's a divine masculine guidance kind of thing that's coming in. So that's what I did is I brought it from here out through your hand and I put it in the ground. Yeah. So now it's gone. Now you don't have the blockage there and now it's flowing and now a new version of you technically exists. It's more of a quantum shift than anything else.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I loved it. Very amazing. It is. It always amazes me how we can heal each other.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That's so.
Yeah, it's still like fringe for now, but that's why we're doing this. So that way we can help people understand. Typically this kind of healing sounds like magic to someone. I assure you it isn't. It's science is what it is. It's quantum energy. All we have to do is turn on the parts of our nervous system that have the ability to sense, see, and feel it.
Yeah.
We're just kind of numb to it because we're using this thing all the time. So we're kind of numb in the feeling of our quantum being. But we can all turn it on. And yours is turned on, and that's why that happens. Yeah. It's you doing it. I'm just like a window opener. I open a window, I let the breeze in. That's kind of what happens. So speaking about that, how did you start into yoga and everything? Like, talk a little bit about your story. Like, where did it start for you?
Okay, so about 10 years ago, right when my dad died, it kind of 180'd my entire life, really. Prior to my dad dying, I was a young mom. I had a baby at 17 years old, very much in a state of survival. My entire life up until that point, just trying to take care of a kid and pay bills and just coming from no money and really just trying to get out of surviving. I lived in that space, and I was so much in my masculine, so much in just work, or just life just seemed really hard. And it just seemed like that was the only thing that I've ever witnessed, was that you just had to like sacrifice everything because that was just the way of it to survive, you know? And I didn't grow up with any faith, any religion, anything outside of this like 3D experience. Everything higher or not here just wasn't available to me in the way that my world was presented, and my paradigm was built from a kid, right? It was just
a lack mindset.
Yeah, it really was. And it was just like, you know, you die and that was it. And we had a lot of death. I've experienced a lot of death from a young age. My family just not knowing how to take care of themselves and their mental health, and lots of drug addiction, and lots of like I never met anyone who lived past like 60. Like all my family members just died very quickly, actually. So it was really, really sad. And when my dad died, my daughter was 3, and I didn't know like how to explain anything to her. And she had this like idea of like God and heaven and hell from just like, you know, I don't know where she kind of picked it up just along the way, I guess. And I didn't know how to like, what to tell her, how to tell her, although I knew like he was gone, but he was still with me. Like it was a really weird experience. So that just kind of propelled me into like my own healing, and movement and plant medicine, they came together, because at this point in my life, like I didn't smoke or do anything because I was so anti-drugs. They killed everyone in my family. Right. So I just had a real judgmental look on everything. And I just thought anyone who wasn't like working hard and sacrificing their life, and if they weren't like tight booty hole serious people, then they were like just fucking off in life, you know? Mm-hmm. So finding yoga and movement before I knew it was yoga, really, because I never even thought yoga was accessible to me. I was poor, right? Poor as hell. And I had this idea of yoga being for like monks or like rich white house ladies who like, you know, just like, that's not for me. But what would happen is I started to smoke weed.
Yeah, that's right? That opens the door.
So I started to smoke weed, and it like calmed my mind stuff down enough for me to like really drop into my body. And then I would find myself doing shit I did when I was a kid, like rolling around and just like, you know, like intuitively just tangling myself up, and things were changing, like things were moving. I couldn't like put my finger on what was happening, but I knew that like I was just seeing the world different. I wasn't waking up like another fucking day, you know. It was just like, wow, like it just felt like so light and so free. And then one of my friends was like, yeah, like we do that in yoga all the time. Like she's seen me like rolling around. I'm like, I always do this and do this. And I'm like, yoga? And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, she got me to stand on my head, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I went to my first yoga class, and I was like, no, yoga's not for me. Like, this is not what I'm doing. It was completely different. It was like a hot power class, and it was really...
And that was your first class, a hot power class?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like what I know now as a hot power class, but me as someone who's never been in a studio on a mat, it was warm and it was powerful. And I just felt like it didn't belong to me. Like, it just felt so foreign. So I just kind of self-led, you know, my way through, and I started to like tell my friends and family, like every morning when I do this with my wrist, or I put my hands behind, like all of the things that I was just like exploring on my own. And I wanted to learn more about it. So I eventually went to yoga school, and since then just, you know, continued to study and be a student of the practice. I really love it, and all the different lineages and like studies that I've done on yoga. I feel like I fell into the more like Kundalini tantric space of not trying to transcend the body and like move to these like higher spaces, but integrating like the holiness and the humanness of it all, and just working with like the darkness of this experience as sacred shit too. So it's just been this like, I mean, it's still developing. I'm still like, I don't really know where we're at with it. It's always kind of churning and learning, and there's so much to learn, so much to unlearn. It's just a wild ride.
Yeah, evolution's amazing. That's what it is.
You're actively healing your generational trauma.
Yeah.
And you're going to be one of the first to live past 60.
I know. That's so funny that you say that, because I didn't even realize that was like a ceiling I had in my head for a long time. But I was like approaching 30 and I'm like, fuck,
I'm halfway there.
You know? And it wasn't until I, like growing up, I stayed basically in my little block. Like we really didn't go outside of our neighborhood. My parents didn't like driving outside of our neighborhood. Like we like were corner store babies. Like we grew up on like the corner store, like everything in proximity to where we were. And when I went to hair school, I went to hair school right out of high school. So I was young, just had a baby. And my hair school was actually here in North Olmsted, which isn't far from where I grew up on Denison and 88th now as an adult. But back then it was a light year away from my little pocket in the hood. And I remember going to hair school, and a little old lady came in, and I'm doing her hair, and I'm thinking she's like 60 and on her way out, you know, and she's like, no, I'm like 87 years old. And I was like, everyone, come here. Look, this woman's 87. And everyone's like, calm down.
Yeah, so's my grandma. Right.
And I was just like so amazed. And I'm like, damn, like people actually do live past 60. And she drove herself and like got her hair done. And it just like busted the ceiling that I had in my head of like, holy shit, like you can live past 60 and drive and like get your hair done. Because the way I've always saw it was like, no, that's not a story that like exists. So it was really liberating actually to be like, damn. And now we're living to like 100, no problem.
And go further than that. It's kind of known now that aging is a disease. That's really what it is. It's just the shortening of telomeres. Is what it is, the ends of the chromosomes. And we can grow those back through our intent. We're able to, I know this firsthand because I stopped aging a while ago, and I actually aged backwards through my own healing. Like, I don't know if like that would show up in some sort of, you know, physical tests or whatever, but I can tell you from my experience. And then just looking at pictures and things, I look at pictures from 10 years ago and I'm way younger now. Like my energy's younger, everything's, I feel like I'm under 30. I feel like I'm not halfway there yet.
Good. Good for you.
So
Good for
I know that that's possible. If I can go from feeling 80 years old, not being able to breathe, I know that that's capable for everyone. And now we have like researchers and stuff, like Bruce Lipton. You ever hear of Bruce Lipton? He's a fantastic researcher. You want to check him out. He talks about something called epigenetics. And in these studies, he's been a genetic researcher for a long time. And his original research was like all other genetic researchers, where how like I was taught in school, like you're like a victim to your genes. Whatever your genes are, that's how it is for you. That's what it is. Well, they're able to find out now through your environment, not this environment, the inner environment, that can affect gene expression. You can actually turn on and shut off genes with your intention. We're that powerful. We just haven't been told that. So if we start studying that kind of stuff and more technology comes along with that, like I've seen all these kind of amazing things where we'll have frequency type machines that can help train minds to open up into new awarenesses, because everything's frequency. So it's pretty amazing what's capable and what's coming. Yeah. You mentioned, because that's a synchronicity with me, something that was big for me that helped me open my mind was cannabis. How did that start for you? What made you step into cannabis?
It really was getting to a space where I wasn't surviving anymore, like in a space of like my bills were paid, and like I had a moment to just not have to chase my own ass, really. And I had some time to like sit for a second, and then I started to invite more play into my life, just, you know, friends and conversation. And one of my best friends at the time was like someone that I grew up with on my block, because again, proximity was like everything. We were like a little wolf pack, all of us who grew up together. And he was, he always was like, you gotta smoke, that's gonna fix all your problems. And then one day I was just like, it was like 4th of July, and I ended up smoking my first time. And it was like, everyone has like the first couple times I smoked, it really didn't, it just made me laugh, which was so much medicine for me at that time, because I was so fucking serious. So serious. Like everything was just so serious. And I just had the greatest night just laughing my ass off, like belly laughing, crying, my face hurt, my cheeks hurt. And I like woke up the next day and I felt younger. And I felt like I looked at myself in the mirror and everything just felt different. And I'm like, damn, all I did was like laugh my ass off and like take a second to like have some fun. And it just like, then the next time I smoked, I was kind of like by myself, and it invited that movement where like normal B, who wasn't using cannabis as medicine at that time, would be like, I got to do all of these things before I could like have a moment. And cannabis was like, no, like take some time for yourself, like sit down, move your body, breathe a little bit. Like it was giving me all of these practices to get out of my mind and into my body. And it really like changed my life. It did that, and the movement, the yoga, the breath work, it all just and the thing is like once you start and you start to feel and know the benefits true for yourself, like it's like it clicks. You can't ever go backwards. It's just like, like, so that's just what kept happening, like those little quantum shifts that you're saying. And it's just like my identity was changing so rapidly where I'm like, no, like I'm a happy person. Like, oh no, this. And it just kept shifting, and it still continues to do so. But
yeah, it's the medicine. That's what it is. We open up our medicine way, is kind of what we call it in our tradition, our medicine way, which to me means kind of more of the ability to shift quantumly, to shift from this. And it also aligns with, like in our tradition, we work with like the energy of the serpent, Amaru. And there's some other serpent energies that we work with. And these serpent energies, the way I was taught about them, like about serpents to begin with, was through a religious scope. So looking at serpents as something bad, like serpents are the devil. Well, in all other traditions around the world, serpents are seen as very powerful beings and capable of helping us shed our skin, going beyond what is beyond what was and into what is. So they're very powerful. That was something that was introduced to me through connecting with Mother Cannabis, because she's a living energy, is what she is. And I became aware of that pretty early when I started using cannabis. And a lot of alignment there with what you're saying. Like I just started having these little changes start to happen. Yeah. These awarenesses. For me, my first awareness was I didn't know what it was. I didn't have like awareness of ego yet, but I would call it my bias. Like I have this bias. I'm making decisions based on my past experiences. I just didn't know what that meant yet. And that was the first thing I started to notice, was that.
Crazy how it does that. Like it really, it really did that for me, to just calm down the noise enough to like see things in a different like light, a different way. And it took me deep within myself. Like it invited this like self-study that I don't think, and I don't like to say like cannabis is everyone's medicine or everyone should experience it. But for me, could yoga and breath work have done it alone? Yes, probably, with over time and commitment and dedication and all of that. But the combination of the two, like it, for me at that point in my time, cannabis was the medicine that I definitely needed.
Same. I was like, I called it the newborn Christian phase. When you try to like, you need to smoke, like, because it works so good for me. My first initial thing was like, everybody in the world needs to smoke a joint.
Yeah, period.
There are some people that just can't handle it, and that's okay. They're not ready for it. It's not happening for them. But for most people I know, a little bit goes a long way.
Yeah.
You know, and everything. It's just like even other plant medicine, set and settings, everything. If it's new to you, you know, we'll see lots of people that have, you know, anxiety and fear come forward when they use the medicine, because it's a medicine. It'll pull forward stuff you don't need. And if you're around the right people, you can process that stuff.
Yeah.
And then some people, they're not, and then they have what they think is a bad experience, and they don't go back into it, don't open it up. And then sometimes it opens up again later, and then they do it again later. So, but yeah, what happens is when we use these plant medicines, it changes our frequency. We're frequency beings. Mm-hmm. So when you're in a control frequency, this isn't working out for me. Hey, this feels a little bit better.
Yeah.
Is what happens. Like, I'm going to explore this. It opens us up to explore. It's amazing. I say she because for me, she's a being. I see her and feel her, not as smoke or as ground up plant stuff. Like, that's secondary. I feel her as living energy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and over time now, I've definitely had many relationships with cannabis.
Yeah.
From like the exploratory to the abusive, kind of like, let me just like smoke myself stupid.
Escapism.
Yeah, right. To like, you know, even periods where I'm like taking space, and now I have a really beautiful relationship where it is ceremonial. Like, it is like inviting the spirit, and each time is like, you know, I used to go and just like smoke as like a, I don't know, habitual type of thing, where now it is a ceremony within my day for me to sit down, and even just like breaking up and rolling up, like everything is with intention. Everything I roll has an intention. Everything is just so much more connected.
Yeah, so it's ritual
and ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Everything, all things, a ceremony.
Yeah, ritual ceremony. So I love cannabis. It's a great medicine. And then you mentioned earlier too about other plant medicines. What was your first interactions with any other plant medicines?
So I'm exploring with mushrooms more ceremonial now, probably within like the last 1.5 to 2 years, I guess. I did in like a party setting before, and not really, like my party setting would be like more escapism. Like, I used to think like, what, like, you know, come 2016, 2017, I've moved a lot of shit internally and like felt really in this like space connected. And I would ask myself, like, what do I do for fun? And it was to escape reality. I'm like, I just want to like take me to the fucking cosmos. Like, let me just leave here for a moment. And that's what I would do when I had time to do what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like my first experience with mushrooms was, you know, in like a festival setting or in the woods. And it was ceremonial, kind of. Like, there was intention, and like it was a great setting, and I was with great people, and I've had all the spectrum of experiences on mushrooms. But now when I do dance with psilocybin, it's more in like a micro setting and with intention, you know, like I'll do it for like a 10-day period, and it's just like every single time it just is so rewarding and so beautiful, and so like I just had this microdosing stint like 2-3 weeks ago, and I'm just like cutting a potato for dinner, and I just like connected with God mm-hmm. so deeply while just like cutting a fucking potato and making dinner, like mm-hmm. to the point where it like made me so emotional and so happy. And I'm just like, just the presence and the way that it just drops me into the moment, and like it drops you so deep into the frequencies of what's like actually happening that I don't know, it just feels so true. It feels so real. It just, I don't know, I love the relationship I have with mushrooms right now.
when you're talking about it, I can see your energy field cycle, and it looks like what gratitude looks like. Because gratitude's a concept. I could say, Brittany, what are you grateful for? And you'll give me all these concepts. But it's really, what is gratitude? It's a frequency of consciousness. It's a way of being is really what
Emanate
it is. So I could just see it radiating from you, and I could feel you cutting the potato, and then you're like, gosh, everything's just beautiful and awesome. You can feel that gratitude, and that's amazing. That's an amazing feeling and a place to be. And that's why I love about plant medicines and plant teachers, is they allow us to be able to connect to these frequencies, even if it's temporary while we're on the medication, while we're on whatever it is. Even if it's temporary, it's training neural pathways to be that way all the time, especially if we do things to integrate it, like movement, like breath, like meditation, like whatever it is. There's many access points that we can go to tap into the neurology of our mind. But that's the key for most people, is having those ways to integrate. Because just as you said earlier, you don't have to take plant medicine, but it sure helps.
Once the door is open, it's open, and it's your responsibility to grow it and nurture it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do jump into those experiences, for like the escapism,
or they're looking for a magic bullet, and they're not willing to do the other half of the work. The medicine shows you what you need to work on, and then you got to do the other half.
Yeah,
but a lot of people have an experience, and then they feel better for a while, and then just have a drop off back to how they were before. So they're like, oh, well, I need more medicine. No, you need to integrate what you learned.
Because it's all neural connections. Because you make, like I just said, it's a neural connection, and it'll stay with you for a little while, this new neural connection. And then if you don't feed it, it kind of falls away, like, oh, I need more medicine.
Yeah. It's funny because you were saying, like, when you first smoked cannabis, you're like, everybody needs to smoke cannabis.
Yeah.
When I first started to, like, have this relationship with, like, mushrooms, I would want to do that and be like, everyone needs to do mushrooms. And now I'm like, everyone needs to establish a meditation and movement practice so they can integrate the medicine of the mushrooms, because you can dive in, and some people fall with style and figure it out on the way down, But I think that if you go into it with already these, like, tools to help you integrate, like, the subconscious shit you don't even see that can come up, like, it's gonna make it a lot more smooth of a dance. So yeah. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, it's similar. I think it happens to a lot of people. Like, I use psychedelics too, like when I was in earlier ages, more of like a party kind of thing, or hanging out kind of thing, which I wouldn't say it was not good. I would say it is good, because it opened up my mind in some ways. I do remember having feelings of oneness. Back then, these feelings I never felt before. But then in more recent times, as I began to develop, I like to use particularly psilocybin and microdosing. I like to use that with the intent for neuroplasticity, to allow my brain to expand. So I do some things. You ever hear of Paul Stamets? He's amazing. You want to check him out. He made a movie called Fantastic Fungi. And
I did.
Yeah, he's got glasses, a big beard, and he wears this hat made out of a mushroom.
Yeah. I've seen the Fantastic Fungi on Netflix, I think. I think I've... Yeah.
It started off as like I don't know what you call that, like kind of an underground kind of movie. It started that way, is how we first came across it. But I learned about him earlier, like 2 years earlier, through Joe Rogan. He's on Joe Rogan, and this guy's like a mycologist of mycologists. He has an amazing story about his first interaction with psilocybin. He had a stammering issue, like a stuttering problem, and it was like really bad. From that one dose, it cured him. It cured whatever the mental blockage he had going on there. And now he speaks very fluently with no issue or anything. Very intelligent human being, very well connected. And he just has a deep understanding for the medicine itself. And not just in the form of psilocybin, in just mycology, period, studying of fungi. He has like 5 or 6 different patents set up for different kinds of things using different forms of fungi. So this guy developed something we call the stamina Stamets stack. So basically, it's taking a microdose with some niacin, but not the flush-free niacin. You want the flush because it opens up all the blood vessels at the capillaries, opening up that. And what else does he add to there? Niacin.
Reishi.
Oh, a lion's mane is a very common one. So he makes some supplements and things that you can use. So I like to use these when I stack. So I'll use whatever predetermined amount of psilocybin, niacin, and then I use something called Stamets 7, which is 7 different types of mycelium, which mycelium is the root system essentially of a mushroom that connects everything. So it's very, very powerful for changing the brain, and then I kind of adapted some stuff of my own to it over time, learning how to create blood flow to my brain, opening up. So you can use these kind of pathways, and people can really have vast changes in short periods of time with just a little bit of psilocybin. Because a lot of people are afraid too, like, am I going to take a big dose and break my brain?
Yeah.
Like, no. But what we'll do is I always recommend people, if it's new to you, start small. Test it out, see how it feels to you, see how it works. Don't just jump in. Some people just don't care and they're open. Some people are just totally fearless. I've known people, their first time with psychedelics is DMT. Like, that's my first trip ever was DMT. I'm like, wow, that's pretty intense. Like, I wouldn't recommend that. Or I meet people out in the world, they're telling me like they've never had psychedelic experience and want to go on an ayahuasca retreat. I'm like, you sure you want to do that? That's pretty intense. Like, that's pretty far
0
out.
to 100.
Yeah, real quick.
And then Paul Stamets, he didn't really have any experiences with psilocybin until he was in his 50s.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. That's how I feel. I didn't do much exploring with any plant medicine at all until at least 23 years old. A lot of my friends are like, what? I was smoking since I was like 13, or this is when I explored, which makes me think like, holy shit, like I could only imagine like what it would have done to me, for me at that age. I don't even know, but
you weren't ready for it. That's why it didn't happen.
For sure, I wasn't ready for it.
Well, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
Now we're here. How cool is that?
It happened the way it should, for sure.
Mm-hmm. What else? Do you have any other experiences with psychedelic medicines or anything like that?
Yeah, I've now more just kind of self-study through microdosing is where I go. But I've had like some bigger doses, like in settings, just to kind of explore different things, and had some really crazy shifts, for sure. I just love, like, for me, like being with psilocybin outside, like in nature, just the way that I've always been super connected to nature, where your spirit guides came to you in Bert and Ernie. Mm-hmm. My spirit guides came to me in the trees and the wind and like the dirt. I was always one that was like I said, we didn't grow up with like God or any religion, but like when I went outside and I felt the wind, I was like, that is God. Fucking God. Or like the sun, or just like, anytime I'm in nature, I always felt super just connected to something much bigger, and like within and without, like I just felt super connected to it all. So like psilocybin, it does that for me. It makes me feel almost childlike again. It makes me like, my imagination comes on, and I've always had a wild, big imagination when I was a kid. Like I was always, they always called me the ringleader. All the adults, they're like, the ringleader over here, because I'm like, and I'll come up with some crazy ass idea for us to do for the day. And I feel like mushrooms does that for me again. It opens up like my childlike wonder. It opens up my imagination. It opens up like things beyond what I can taste, touch, feel, and like it brings me into this space of just, I don't know, of just connectedness and oneness. And it's so beautiful. It's like it is so much my medicine right now, which is, I'm so happy that we're talking about it, because you can feel like I'm so in love with it, which maybe 2 years ago this probably wouldn't have been like my conversation. Right. So I do feel like timing is everything. And yeah, I mean, I'm really loving the dance that we have going on right now. Other types of plant medicines, I've really loved cacao too. I've done like different ceremonies with cacao, and just like even the kava, that was new for me, but like, you know, I can feel the medicine in my body. I could feel what's happening in the shifts and like the subtle little changes, and the way that like when it's invited in with intention, it does like open my heart and like take me out of my head, and do the same thing like cannabis did for me so many years ago, where like I'm here and I'm like with you guys and we're like in it, you know, like it feels really good.
Yeah, you're not sitting here overthinking.
No.
Just enjoying yourself.
Yeah, enjoying conversation and people, and that's the biggest gift I think that all plant medicine does for me, is it just like grounds me into the moment. And like sometimes it's so hard for me to stay present. Like I disassociate a lot and run away a lot, like even in conversation sometimes, which is something that I like am working on, staying present in conversation sometimes. And then I'm like, I don't struggle to stay present in conversations that feel like this. But like other conversations where I'm just I'm like fighting with myself to stay here. And I'm like, maybe those are just not for me.
Could be. It could be. I mean, if it doesn't interest you, or it's not like sparking your mind, it's hard to pay attention to it. But another thing I've learned is those ones, allowing yourself that space to give it all of your attention. So it's like a training. We can train ourselves. In our tradition, we call it sitwa, is what we call it, is when we're just passively observing.
Yeah.
Just you're not ready. You're not thinking of how to answer. You're not thinking of a question. You're not making any thoughts or judgments. You're just sitting with the person and then allowing yourself to see them as like the perfected being, the golden Buddha or the Christ itself. You can open that up, and like even if it's a conversation maybe you can't pay attention to, that can change it, and then you'll start absorbing, because it's not the words really when we're talking. It's not always the words. It's the frequency.
The words,
right?
Yeah.
And you can't feel the vibrations if you're thinking, if you're here.
Well, that's
so we come here.
Yeah, that. It is because, like, I've been wondering, what is it that you can meet some people and there's just this chemistry, this attraction, this like interest in everything, like the vibration just like dances together like a familiar dance, like, and it's not like some people are better than other or any hierarchy in the situation or anything like that. And I do really see God in everyone, and I do strive for that, but I also am like really like just observing when I am fully engaged with ease versus when I have to practice, what is it, sitwa? Sitwa. Practice the pulling my awareness here and just being with it, because it is a practice for me.
Yeah,
so,
everyone.
Wait a minute.
Everyone.
Wait a minute, I'm back again.
I don't know anyone that's not a practice for. I'm still practicing it. There's times, just like you're saying, when someone's talking and I don't have a vibrational match, because I feel like that's what it's coherence, vibrational coherence. And if I don't feel like it's meshing together, then there's this almost like a feeling of uncomfortability. Like I don't even feel comfortable with this conversation or whatever this person's talking about. Maybe I don't agree with what they're saying.
Yeah.
But then I realize, well, I don't have to agree. I just have to accept. And within that acceptance, we can pick up on that person's energy, because like you just said, everybody's God. Yeah. And especially my favorite thing is to allow myself to be still around people who trigger me. Because triggering people, triggers are our greatest gifts. They show us where we're not free. They're the most amazing things. Our ego mind always wants to blame externally. Your energy's heavy. I can't be around you, kind of thing. But if I'm triggered, it's in me. It's showing me a part of me that's unhealed. That's not how I used to think. I used to have, my mind would be like, you have to protect yourself, put up a bubble, keep this heavy energy away from you, this negative energy away from you. Well, it was before I came into a realization that, all is one living energy, and I am it. So I don't need to run, I need to master it. Is what it is.
Oh my God, yes. It's so aligned with like where I'm actively at right now. Is I've been really, really great so far in my practice of when I'm getting energy that is, I don't like to say good or bad, but just like heavy or low vibrational or misdirected, or like you said, it doesn't matter what someone's saying or doing, the vibration, the energy of it. Like you could walk into a room, and I live in those spaces, so I can feel it. And it just like, and I've been taking that energy and transmuting it and grounding it, and I've been just putting it into the earth, and I've been like rocking out with that for a while now, where I'm like, yes, I'm like eating negative energy and giving it to Gaia, like this is like my duty, my service. It felt really great. But then Spirit like hardcore called me out like a couple days ago, because I was doing it and I was feeling sticky after doing it. Like I was feeling like, you shouldn't have grounded it, you should have like kissed it and made it beautiful and then recirculated it, because like, and it was, and I noticed it because I've had a couple of situations recently where like someone was just, I'm not taking it personal or anything, like just in a bad space or in a bad moment, and like they threw it at me and I feel it, and it's like, oh, okay, now what do I do with it? And I would just like swallow it, shit it out, get rid of it. And now I'm like, no, like I can't just like dissolve it anymore. I need to like put a bow on it and like send it off like beautifully, which is really fucking difficult sometimes, you know, like especially with like the big stuff.
Yeah, so what you're explaining is forms that in our tradition we call hucha mikwi, which hucha is heavy energy, mikwi means to digest or combust. So there's different ways of doing it, like how you're doing. You're intentionally taking the heavy energy and giving it to the earth, which is a beautiful thing, especially when it's yours, because it is yours. When you're feeling it, whatever you're grounding is yours now. When you're taking this energy that we think we're taking from somewhere else, it's really living in here. So it's actually a great move. So what we call that too is samanchakui in our tradition, allowing a light to come through the top of the head, pass through the body, and take all the heavy energy through our root system and feed it to Pachamama, to Mother Earth. Because for her, our heavy energy is like sweet chocolate, because there's no bad. It's just heavy energy. It's our condensed light is what we call it in our tradition. So by giving it to her, that's a pretty good move. But there's another thing, like kind of what you're saying, and what you're doing is you're giving it love, and by you doing that, you're able to, we call this the path of the hummingbird, extract the nectar. Keep that part with you. I'm going to keep what's good for me, and then I'm going to give away the rest. It's kind of what, with love, I lovingly release this, letting it go. So that's beautiful. Those are beautiful things. What gave you these ideas to do that? Your guidance?
I guess my guidance, and it's just like just the awareness that all the medicines of movement, breathwork, yoga, plant medicine is just made me so like not super aware. I'm not like some fucking superhuman or anything, but just really aware of like myself in like those types of situations, and where I've been so deep in the other end of it, in the like anger of it, in the like, you know, like growing up, like we held anger, we punched people, you know, like it wasn't, it transmuted the energy for sure, but it wasn't healthy by any means. It just, you know, it took it away temporarily, but it just,
and then built more guilt inside,
built
like
shame, guilt, because we're not supposed to do things like that. So for me, like the anger, the sadness, the emotions, like that's all, like learning to witness them and not identify as them is new for me. Even with so much practice and fucking like so much being a student, it's still like so new.
And we're back. We had to take a quick break. Forgive us. I don't know where we were at though. Do you remember?
No, I was gonna ask like what is I know you read the mission of like Moshi, but like how does that look like in terms of like the process of it? Like is there
we're currently working on creating abundance to open the first multimodal healing center in Ohio. That includes all of those healing modalities.
So like an actual like facility where you would do these types of things.
And then expand that worldwide. Make many of these places.
Cells everywhere.
Yeah, because I've never heard of anything. Like, I'm always like, yeah, there definitely
There's
should
large
be.
communities in other parts of the country. Ohio's just lacking, so I'm organizing it.
Good. That's so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to organize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Organize the energy.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it begins, mate.
Yes.
So right now it's with the podcast, you're just like interviewing people who, you know, are...
We have a weekly meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a weekly Moshi meeting we do on Sundays. It's like 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then we meet here is where it is, and it'll fill up this room. And then usually we start off, Dave will read some things, and if I'm here, I'll open up Sacred Space, Paco Inca style. And then we'll open up the floor for discussion first. If anyone has anything they want to share, particularly, you know, it can be anything. But what's that?
Integration.
Yeah.
If anybody has recent spiritual experiences or plant medicine experiences they need help making sense of.
Yeah, because most of us don't have people around us to talk to about these things.
Yeah.
So I meet lots of people all over the world that have been having spiritual or metaphysical experiences for quite some time, but since they don't have anyone to talk to about it, they kind of covet it and hide it, and this can create trauma for a lot of people. So being able to come into a space where there's no judgment, there's all different kinds of people, all different walks of life and backgrounds and religions and all kinds of things. And everybody comes together and we're all sitting here, and it's basically like a form of sitwa. Like I was explaining before, we all are sitting here passively listening to what the person has to say, and then if we have inputs, we'll add those later on. In the discussion, and then we'll usually move around the room and we'll talk about like a given. Dave usually shows up with something he channels for us to talk about. Maybe it'll be forgiveness, or maybe it'll be it could be anything. We end up talking about something. What was the last one? Passion. Mm-hmm. So these are things, they are concepts that translate also to frequencies of consciousness. So if you get the person thinking about the concept, like say forgiveness, like I'll be like, Brittany, what is forgiveness to you? And you'll sit there and you'll think about the concept of forgiveness, and I'll say, well, what does that feel like? So then you're paying attention to your frequency. So all of us talking about it opens up lots wide range of frequency. So we're actually doing a lot of healing in a frequency level far beyond a biochemical level.
Systemic healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. I'll have to drop into one of those.
You'll dig it.
Yeah.
It's fun. I like them. We're going to expand them. We're going to do some things. There's lots of people now involved in what we're doing, and they want to learn more, like shamanic practices, spiritual communication, guide connections, things like that. So we're going to try to like develop like class, like essentially for people to become ministers, like Moshi ministers. And we want to make that so it's global, because Mary and I already kind of have a global community started. And within that, there's lots of people from that community that are following Moshi now and want to grow and expand. So if we can kind of help people step into their highest ability, open up their medicine gifts, they'll start creating their own little, it's almost like Fight Club, but we're not going to fight, we're going to heal each other, is what it's going to do. It's like the same thing. It looks exactly the same to my mind, the way it showed up to me, because all of this happening was a vision I had in 2017 as well. In 2017, I had a really powerful awakening experience where I had this awareness that we were going to change and do something that helps change the world. I had no idea what that meant, because at that time, Mary was she worked at a car dealership, and I was a heating and air conditioning technician. So I said, I don't know how I'm going to fix a furnace and change the world, but something's going to happen. And I also had these visions of creating, that's how the Positive Pineapple started. It started as this way I could see us starting these healing centers that pop up all over the world. We start working as a community. We all come together, and then we can have all these cells all over the place that are open. Because right now, we're at the beginning, just how you were explaining as you were talking here, you're explaining how there's new awarenesses coming to you. Yeah, we're ascending or waking up or remembering. We call it a great remembering in our tradition. We're remembering more. But if you're remembering, that means everyone's remembering. So there's people that don't remember anything yet, like how we didn't earlier.
Yeah.
And they're starting to remember. We're actually creating that energetic womb for people to change. And they're going to need us. That's why we're here. That's why you're here. We're all here to do that, to help people to go beyond their limitations, just how we did. right? We're carving that way. We're creating that energetic pathway to create forms of healing and consciousness to open up. So we're kind of right now on that cusp. I can sense and feel there's about to be like a large wave of awakening or remembering happening. So it's like Spirit shows me in these visions, these vision quests I have, where there's people like they wash up like out of the ocean onto the shore of consciousness, and they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, because that's going to happen. We're going to see people all of a sudden, the way their brain's working, because it's all frequency, completely changes. I already see this. It's been happening around the world. Me and Mary have been working with people for 3.5 years in 47 countries. And we've seen people just have like organic awakening. They'll get a message. It happens still quite often. Anthony, I don't have anxiety anymore and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, just go with it. Let's develop your practice now. Your practice. It's your practice. You know this because your practice is what changed your life.
Yeah.
Right? You started moving your body. Oh, my movement is medicine. Started breathing. This starts to affect the way your brain's working because it's all connected. It's all one living energy thing. So why we're doing this is this spreads medicine everywhere. So there you have a community of people that know you and they would love to hear your story. And that also then all of these other communities of people that come on here, everybody starts to meet each other.
Yeah.
And it starts to create, that's that mycelium we were talking about, or that the C key energy lines. Everything starts to connect and become coherent. It's shown it to me from very early on. It's very similar to like a neural network. It's like the Spirit showed me in terms of like, this is like a collective consciousness had a stroke and it forgot who it is. And now we're working to remember who it is.
Yeah.
What it is, which we're God. We're a connection of all things. We are all things put together. So that's why we've designed this podcast. Came through. It was a vision that happened to me before Moshe started, like not long though before. It's like it's all part of our manifestation. Mm-hmm. He was manifesting, I was manifesting, we manifested each other. We knew each other before now, but in different capacities. Yeah. And then in this reality, as soon as I'll never forget when we started talking, our energy started to merge. Like, oh, we're totally the same. Mm-hmm. Like, this is pretty far out. And we needed each other at that, like, we need each other. We help each other. We help each other heal. And it was in that time that I already had this awareness to start. My spirit guide just telling me, you need to start a podcast. I already do a live stream, but like a podcast where you're interviewing, talking to people. Mm-hmm. And, then I mentioned it to Dave, and Dave's like, yep, that sounds good. And since he's a manifesting generator and makes things happen, bam, he shows up, time to go. We got it. Let's go. Was it 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I mentioned, let's do a podcast. 2 weeks later, it's all ready to go.
Yeah.
And now here we are. And now we're interviewing amazing, loving people. And it's your voice. It's the things that come through you. You're going to touch someone that can relate with you. They're like, I totally relate with what she was saying. Because all of us have a unique story, but also ways that we connect to each other. This is the deepest form of medicine, is our ability to communicate.
And we're all accessible. We're not a bunch of doctors and experts, so to speak, sitting here on their high horse.
Right.
Talking about things they know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talking about what we feel and what what that does is that opens up a pathway for someone that maybe feels these things, but hasn't heard it put in that way. Sometimes all it takes, so I never heard it put that way. And it really opens up the mind. It's
like, it's the same, it's exactly the same, actually. What I do at the studio, I have a yoga teacher training, and it's like that. And how I see it and how Spirit shows it to me is very similar to how you see it, but like, I almost see like lighthouses, and each one is like lighting up in their own space. And I had that intention before doing the teacher training, when it was just like me, creating little or holding space for people to come into their light, like even just after a yoga class. But like with teacher training, it is this like deep dive into remembering your divinity and being able to go out and share your style of the practice, like what combination of modalities like moved you. And then there's someone that, like you said, like you can hear it from me 1,000 times, and then you are a different person each time you come to your mat, each morning, each day. You can just receive it from someone else in a way that completely transforms your whole entire like life. And yeah, it's important to have many ways and many people sharing, their magic, because this is the plan for all of us to just turn into the light and collectively elevate to, like, I'm excited to see what happens when we're in a space as like a collective vibrating on a space where, like, I can talk to you guys and tell you guys spirit came to me in my Bert and Ernie poster, or that, like, all of these things where some people are so disconnected from these spaces that it just, the mass awakening of people realizing the subtler realms of, like, this experience, that we're beyond just our humanness, is so beautiful. And I'm, like, here for it. I'm, like, here for it.
Yeah.
In so many ways. So.
Well, I can share with you that time is illusory, and it's already happened, and I perceive and see these things and sense these things. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's amazing, the world that we're opening up to and going to create. And where does that happen? It happens from in here. It happens in us as you continue to grow, and I continue to grow, and he continues to grow, and everyone continues to grow in the communities and the things we're trying to create and change. That creates energetic coherence in the ability. So in our tradition, it talks about the time of the beginning of the fifth level. Like, it's not really fifth dimension. We don't think of dimension, everything's frequency. So it's like the fifth level beings will start to arise. These are going to be people that have the ability to heal just with touch. They could touch you and not just heal what hurts you, reconfigure you, turning you into a fifth level being. Right? And so that means that we'll have certain capabilities to be able, essentially Christ-like capabilities is what it would be. The ability to walk on water, the ability to create things, to, alchemize, to turn rocks into food, things like that. These are all things we all have capability to do. We just don't remember yet. And now we're living a really cool time, which is better than where, like, the biblical terms and ideas and most ancient ideas come from. They didn't have quantum physics to help explain these things. Now we have that. We live and we understand and know scientifically that we live in a field of living energy. All of this is waves of light and information. Physical is an illusion. That's something we actually are just perceiving through this idea of a nervous system. Like, there is no actual reality. The reality is sensation through this.
Yeah.
What we get to actually
trips
focus.
Me out is, when I think back, to just yoga and the beginning and, like, earliest texts of yoga, before all of this science could back up, like, they sat down and closed their eyes and listened to their breath and figured this out.
Yeah, they took in the information.
Yeah,
right.
Like, without anything.
It's translating it from thinking to feeling, from here to here.
And it's funny that it's the fifth level, because in, the Hindu teachings of, like, the chakra system and the throat chakra being this bridge from head to heart. And, like, when this space is, like, open and there's no blockages in the vibrational frequency realm, like, the ego mind stuff it communicates with the heart. So, like, everything just comes back through love. Like, you can just, like, I don't know, you don't get in the head stuff too much, because the heart is easily accessed and everything can just be.
Yeah, coherence is always the word that comes through, and everything starts to work coherently. This is why our practices like yoga, that's why breath work and many other access points, what's happening is you're changing the characteristics of your nervous system, how the parts of your nervous system are communicating with your brain. So something just as easy as breathing, you're using your diaphragm, you're connecting your vagus nerve to your brain. There's 11 other cranial nerves as well, but that's one of the primary ones, is when you're insufflating using the diaphragm. You're moving blood, lymph, cerebral spinal fluid up into your brain, and then you're also attenuating energy through that nervous system, which is hardly ever used because most of the time we're in fight or flight mode. The majority of people are sympathetic dominant. So they're consistently in a fight or flight mode, so there's shallow respiration or holding of the breath. So that's that water, your 60% water and lymph is like your primary beginnings of your defense system, of your immune function. If that stuff's not moving and you're not moving that part of your nervous system, it's just like anything else. It becomes stagnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you decide to stop using your hand right now, it won't be a long time before it starts to atrophy and not work. We see this happen to people. You break your arm, you wear a cast for a long time, that muscle in the arm starts to atrophy and everything because you're not using it.
Yeah.
So the same thing, it's kind of like withered up roots is what it looks like to me. And then as we start to use them and connect to them, we are able to bring in more light and energy, because even thoughts, most people think thoughts are in you. Well, they're not. They're out here. That's why nothing's hidden in the psychic realm. That's not where they're at all. They're energy forms, and we connect to them through our vibration. So if we are stuck in cyclical patterns of thinking, the first thing you want to do is change your vibration.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we know this because through practice. So what happens is when you're feeling heavy, what do you do? What do you do when you feel heavy? Dance, right? So I'm moving the waters of the body. I'm moving my energy system. My nervous system is responding. And what does it do? It creates flow. You're in a beautiful flow state, right? How cool is that? We're amazing beings. We're so much more powerful than we know even now. We don't really understand yet.
The way the body is just so intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
It just trips me out, every day, all day, just in so many ways, and just the mechanics of it, but then also just the way it stores energy in the tissues, and just how things can be moved and released. It's the reminder of it, it just never gets old. Hearing about it. I taught yoga at 5 a.m. this morning, and it's hot yoga, and we had a throat chakra practice, and someone wrote me afterwards, and they're just I cried the whole way home today, and I just feel so light, and I feel like I moved something, and I'm just yes. Because I feel like that is something that we lose kind of, or has been lost for a lot of people, is the way the body holds on to things. And we are coming into a world where most people are aware of mental health and talk therapy and releasing traumas and energies of the mind stuff, and but the way the body, the somatic release within the body of things that are stored is just so powerful too. And it's you need them both really to move the stagnant shit out.
Move the stuck.
To move the stuck. Yeah. And it really is a beautiful practice. The movement is so good.
Yeah.
Tied with breath and just intention. It's a magical practice.
Indeed. It's a beautiful practice. I love all these. There's so many, and there's so many more I want to learn and know more about. There's just more stuff available. So many ancient human technologies are available. Yoga is an ancient human technology. Breath work is an ancient human technology. Meditation is an ancient human technology. There's so many of them that are available, and there's stuff we haven't even heard of yet that are living in jungles and parts of the world that we haven't really explored or opened ourselves to.
Yeah.
Because we think those people are primitive.
We think that, right? Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I was just watching something last night. Science is getting better and better at bringing forth new information, especially about ancient, what we consider to be ancient civilizations that we thought were primitive. Oh no, they're far more like the Inca per se. Our tradition derives from the Inca. The Inca were very advanced people, very spiritually and energetically advanced. That's why when you go down to Peru, there's stone structures and things that are built out of things that we don't have current machinery to move or build.
Have you guys watched the documentary on Netflix, the Ancient Civilization documentary?
Are you talking about the one with Graham Hancock?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Is he a guy with glasses? Called Ancient Apocalypse.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes all over the place.
It's similar to what you're saying. Just and even when you were talking earlier about just the fifth level people or fifth level beings, they've been here before, like you said, or they're here now, or I don't know, what is, they're here now, right?
Energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Well, technically we are them.
Yeah.
You are a fifth level being. I've seen you in the fifth level vibrational reality. So I'm capable of walking in through different vibrational frequencies and realities. So most of the people that are around me that are like part of this soul family that we call, that's grown together, I know all of them in another higher vibrational reality. So technically all time is now. We're not getting there. We're already there. We're just having this experience of time. That's why we've decided to be human, or the idea of human.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So someone who's like in this space of shamanism and like being able to experience like all these levels of the realms and these things and see so clearly like you do and feel so clearly like you do, like, do you still get stuck in your human shit? Like, is that like a...
Yeah, so I'm part of a collective consciousness. I'm not separate from anyone else. I can only be as awake as the most asleep person. So that means yes. Everyone that vibrates, if I'm vibrating in this third dimension, anyone you see here is going through forms of remembering or stripping away of what is not in alignment. It's like just energetic blockage. That's why we choose to be here in this human form, because we're smoothing out our energy flow. Is what's
like
happening.
Peeling an onion, there's layer after layer after layer.
Yeah. Stuck? No, I don't get stuck anymore. That doesn't happen. Does it arise? Like, will I have a reaction sometimes? Yeah, very, very small. Like, it'll be just maybe for a few days, or sometimes I can tell that there's an imprint coming through. Like, say, I grew up poor, so like I have these lack mindset things in the back of my mind that prevent me energetically from receiving. So I'm aware of that, and so sometimes I'll see it, but then I know what it is. Like I'll talk to people about, talk to Dave, like, I'm having some weird thing happening to me. I can feel this thing happening, and then by talking about it, I'm bringing more information and energy into it. And then usually what I do is I'm connecting to my guidance, to my guides and the spirits I work with, because I'm surrounded by spirits, and I ask them to bring to me the medicine or the frequency. I'm not saying it with my words. I'm asking, because it's me too. I'm learning how to connect to the higher parts of me, and I bring that in, and then it can help me to rectify. I can start to see the thing I'm tripping over as nothing.
Yeah.
That's okay. And then I don't get mad at my ego for having the response, like, why are you doing this again? You know better not to do this. I'm very loving to him. I'm very loving to the boy that's inside of me, because that's that little ego mind that's inside of all of us. It's trying to protect itself. It's afraid. But if it starts to trust the higher mind, this is what I always say, it's a relationship between I and me.
Yeah.
Right? Some people will say, hey, this world is between you and you. Well, that's not actually true. It's I and me is what it is, and it's trying to create a relationship. Most New Age teachings tell you to dissolve your ego, to kill it. I guarantee you that will never happen. All you'll do is suppress it, and it'll show up later in some other way, is what will happen.
Stronger.
It's living energy, and it's part of us. So what it needs to be is integrated. It needs to be learned how to love.
That's like the tantric teaching too of that is like, like you said, holy and human. It's like the whole space of it. So yeah, I feel that too. Like I get into my human stuff too. I don't get stuck there as often as I used to. But just like the awareness of like seeing your little self and being able to like heal maybe just one layer of the healing, like you said, it's like an onion. Maybe it comes back again in a different way or a different form, but just being able to like heal it and know, like, I don't know, just to be able to witness the work is it's so fun to me.
Yeah, it is. To witness transformation. Yeah. And then it's even fun, like in the positions we're in, to see other people changing. It also keeps us on our game.
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing I always tell about people. It's not hard for me to stay with my practice, because my practice is what I do. Right? That's what I'm doing in my life and what's going on. So it's harder I think, for other people if you're not living this life. Like I never forget to do my practice, because I do it every day.
Every day.
Yeah, it's my job, so I never get away from that in any sort of way. So it actually gives us like really big advantages to our growth and to our expansion. And you'll notice that that's with a lot of people as they expand and grow, they also want to help change the world. And that's why these communities are so very powerful and capable.
Another key thing is to balance your masculine and feminine. I mean, we have radical feminism and toxic masculinity, and people, their egos try to disprove one or the other, and it just breeds more of it.
Yeah.
So for men, it's getting in touch with that feminine side and learning how to feel your feelings and being able to cry and things like that. It's not, it doesn't make you weaker, it makes you stronger.
Whole.
Whole.
You're open to receive whatever shows up without separation. Yeah, it's difficult for lots of people. Yeah.
Having both of those, in Tantra, it is like the two faces of God, you know, like the two sides of the coin, but the coin is the experience. So it's like you need the like feminine face of God and then the masculine face of God. And this has been my dance for the long time, where I was like, I think of like a pendulum, like I was so far in the masculine for so many years. And I remember the moment that it happened, the moment that I swing to because like the cannabis got me over there, the movement, and I was kind of like playing in these spaces of, for me, just like not needing to survive and just like laughing and like the more receiving pleasure and just receiving like life. It was like this pendulum swing back and forth. And I was on a business trip. I used to work in as like a corporate auditor, and I would have to travel. And I would be like, and I didn't love the work, obviously, but I was a people person, and I was like in my journey of just like in my practice so deeply that like I loved everything that I did, really. And I'm like rolling a joint on my planner, and my friend's like driving me, and we're like coming back from like one of my big business trips, and I'm like, I'm feeling called to like lean more into my feminine and to like maybe quit this job and like create more space and more freedom in my life. And as I'm like saying this to her, and she's like driving and we're having this conversation, I like go to dust the bud off my planner, and I like put it out the window, and it just like flies out the window, my whole planner, which was like more than a planner. Like when you're like a corporate auditor, it like had like my entire like life,
or what you thought was your life,
was my life in it. And it just like, and we were on the turnpike doing like 70, so there was no like retrieving it. And in that moment I was just like, oh well, here we go. Like it was just decided that all the things that I was like playing with of like moving into my feminine, it just confirmed it. And it was like, this is your invitation to like leave it all, let it fly out the window and dive deep into this. And it's been this beautiful dance now with both, of trying to like, you know, because in anything I feel like the feminine is just repressed for even females, you know, like as a feminine business owner, like there's so many things that like trying to keep the essence of receiving and flowing and being in the softness of the feminine energy, but still holding the masculine there to like, it is just this dance that I feel that's like super hard if you are a man, because of the way, you know, things have been.
We've been programmed.
Yeah.
I've been deprogrammed. Yeah.
Construction.
Yeah. I'll never forget. That was one of my favorite things about the priesthood initiations, where we'll be in a couple weeks from now, is when we were out there. Some of the exercises we did and the initiations of the priesthood was to merge your feminine and masculine energies together. And I remember having my ego having forms of resistance, because I was afraid. It had fear, like, well, if I let go of this, I won't be of control anymore, or idea of control. And then my higher mind and my spirit guides like, no, this will bring balance to you. Like, oh, well, that makes sense. And I'll never forget when it happened. It was a certain type of ceremony that we do out there. I don't want to talk too much about it, but we do a certain type of ceremony together where we merge the two energies together. And in that moment, it's like I was completely reborn. And since then, how I react to life and everything else, I'm so much more compassionate. It has a lot to do with, I think, the trauma of my childhood. Like, I grew up with two sisters and a mom that were pretty hard on me. They were pretty rough on me. And then that mirrored itself in, like, my relationships with women after that. So, like, I had a big, like, disconnection and distrust for women just in general. Like, especially if you have an abusive mother, like, I think that's a common thing for people to happen is we become distrusting because of this woman who's supposed to love me and raise me and all these things, she's that threatening to me, like life-threatening in some sort of way. How can I trust anyone else?
Yeah.
That was how my mind was built in that thing. Well, that was until like 14 years ago when Mary showed up. And when Mary showed up, she's the first person that showed me love. It was the first time I felt love. And then, fast forward, it took years and years for her to crack me open, but she did. And I'll still say, I would say she's one of the greatest healers I know. She's amazing.
Yep, same with my wife, Julie.
Yeah. We've been saved.
Yeah.
And then I laugh at her. I'm like, well, look at you. You manifested, because she's about to be a priest in this month. She's going to be initiated into her priesthood. And I always giggle with her. I was like, look at you. You're so powerful. You manifested a Paco into your life to help you expand. I was like, isn't that sweet? She's like,
She really did. She's so beautiful, man. She's like I always tell her, she's like Spirit's matchmaker. Like she'll meet someone and she's like, you got to meet this person. And she's just like,
she knows.
Yeah, she just is making these little
Connecting to my ceiling.
Yeah.
She is.
She's like everybody. One thing I always noticed about her is her ability to be anyone's friend. There's no one that she just is one of those people. I'm not really good at that. I guess there's too much chatter happening and too much energy reading that's happening. I'm not good at complimenting people when I first meet them in some sort of oh, I love your shirt. I work on it. I'm getting better at it. But saying things like that. And she knows just how to open up these conversations with people. And I watch them open up and trust her really quickly. And I'm like, that's beautiful. That's I always thought that was such a beautiful gift that she's had. She's always been that way.
When I talk about the attraction, the chemistry with people, I forgot how her and I linked up together. I don't remember, but we had a call scheduled, and as soon as we started talking, it was just effortless, so easy. We ended up talking for an hour out of nowhere, and I'm like, what were we even what was the point of this phone call? Because she just so effortlessly holds this sacred space for people to just strip down everything and just step in and be seen for who they are in that moment. And she just gives you a big, loving, warm, motherly hug that's just all of it's lovable. And it's just and she does it so effortlessly. Her look is I feel hugged by her just in her presence. It's really beautiful.
That's funny. Last night, because I'm a mentor, so I'm a teacher of other Pacos, and so we have class on Mondays usually with my proteges. And during that, we went into a meditation, and Mary had a vision where she can see that when she arrives into her 5th level, she'll be able to hug people. And it's always been that way for her. I could give you a hug, and I'll be able to heal you.
Yeah.
I'm I believe that.
She already does.
Already does,
she
right?
Already does.
Yeah, already does. It's amazing. What was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you about. So let's talk a little bit about you're a business owner, a female business owner, and you have this beautiful place, Yellow Brick Studio. Okay, how long have you been with? How long ago did you start Yellow Brick?
Our 4-year anniversary is actually this month.
4 years.
15.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So 4 years. We opened up June of 2019.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So what kind of things do you offer, and where do people find you?
So we're located in Parma on Broadview Road, and we have lots of different weekly classes that range from all the ways of yoga, yin yoga. We have I guess power yoga, and I say that with power yoga because it's not some power yoga studios, but it is more of a challenging. I feel most of the space we hold is all about dropping you into your body and just inviting organic exploration. But there are a couple classes where we're more trying to push you to that space of expansion. We do full moon ceremonies every Wednesday before the full moon. I'm doing one tomorrow night, actually. We have sound healing. One of the best, biggest, most greatest, most passionate creations that come from that space is the teacher training, which is a 200-hour program that just dives us deep into all the layers of yoga, and I always have to say yoga not in the sense of just like the physical asana practice. Like it's so much more than that. Basically just remembering that you are God. And we move through the chakras, and it's a really beautiful program. And I've witnessed people like just completely shift into these beautiful spaces in their life and just like go out into the world and be that lighthouse and be that space for like their community. And I had a meditation in my last teacher training, and I was like meditating before class, and two of the girls that were in the class were nurses, and I flew up above this building, like a hospital. They don't even work at the same hospital, but it was like a hospital, and I seen like the whole floor just like changing, and these floors that they were on being like light, and just like everyone was responding to their light, and it just was like I was seeing that in the spaces, and it was really beautiful. It's just like it literally is a container for you to go in and harness that light and get it really like hot and active and passionate, and like the essence of it is just alive to where every interaction that you have, it's just like felt, and that has been so beautiful. So yeah, we do teacher training, we do lots of fun stuff. We're doing free yoga this weekend, or this Wednesday the 21st, for International Yoga Day. So lots of things for the community, lots of ways for me to connect with people who don't think that yoga is for them. Kind of breaking that story that a lot of people have, that yoga is something outside or not available to them, or you need to be a certain way or a certain age or a certain culture or a certain size or color or whatever. Yeah. Creating community and going beyond limitations. Bro, the community. This community is so beautiful. Like everybody that, it's just like, it is like I hold a frequency in that space that is I'm really passionate about, and I'm really like, and I don't even have to try hard. It's just a frequency that is, and nobody can I don't have to do anything to protect it, or like you can't even reach it if it's not for you, you know. It's like, and it feels like that. It feels like it calls in everyone that it's for, and I don't have to convince anyone or trick anyone or like sell it. It's just like this essence that is just like growing and vibing and magnetizing everyone that is called to it. You just described my kava bar too. Yeah. Yeah, and what is that frequency? That's the most powerful force in the world. Love. It's love. It's love. Yeah. That's really love. Is what. So did the name come from your love of the Beatles? My name came from a brick. Yeah, I asked the same question. I wasn't going to ask it, but let's ask it. How did it get to be yellow brick? So, literally, Spirit came to me in a yellow stoop. It was more of like the building that I had no plan to start a yoga studio. Like, I quit my corporate job. I started real estate just with the intention to like practice more and just free up space. And I ended up having a baby, my son Joey, who's a twin of yellow brick. They were like created in the same year, which was really weird. My husband was like, wait a minute, you want to quit your good paying corporate job, open a yoga studio, which you've never even like talked about before, or like, I mean, I was teaching yoga, but I didn't think I needed a space or was part of my plan, and it just like showed up one day. I drove past and I'm like, oh, like something just drove me to call the number and see. And the guy was like, what's the name of your, I'm like, it's a yoga studio. He's like, what's the name of it? And I was like looking down at this like yellow stoop in front of the building, and I'm like, it's yellow brick. And it wasn't till later that night that I made the connection that it was like, you know how you don't remember something until you think about it, and you're like, oh, well, I guess that was like maybe a significant space. When I used to walk home from school, I had to walk home through this alley, and there was like this like line of yellow bricks that when I got to that space, I could see my porch and kind of just like know who's home and like get this like sense of like I'm home, finish line. And when I was like asking Spirit later that night, I'm like, what am I doing? What the fuck am I doing? Is this right? Like, give me a sign that like I'm on the right track. And I just heard clear as day, like, yeah, the yellow bricks were your sign. And it just like took me back to that moment. it made this connection that just my whole body felt as like a fuck yeah. And it wasn't easy, like to do it, because my husband was projecting every fear I had.
Yeah. On purpose, though. That has to happen so that you check yourself.
And it was just like, I know, but I have to do it. And I had no expectation. And it kind of just started as like a clubhouse sort of say of just like, I'm just going to see what happens. And the community, just like the essence of it, it's like, it just has evolved to be so beautiful. And yeah, Yellow Brick, here we are.
Beautiful.
I love how you're explaining like all through that thing. Like something told me your guides, our guidance is always there, opening up. That's so amazing, though. I love to hear those things where people just, I don't know, I just became inspired by
it's like
something.
Knowing without knowing that. Yeah, it is these higher spaces. It is like, you know, I feel like the third eye, like vibrational light spaces of just like, you just get this inner knowing that's like, yeah, this is a yeah for me.
It's a yeah.
It's a yeah.
It's a yeah for me too.
See.
See. Well, Brittany, I want to thank you so much for being here and being here with us. We love you.
I love you.
And I can't wait to come on over to Yellow Brick. I want to have more interaction and all kinds of things. I love your space, and I look forward to it.
Same.
I look forward to see what kind of things we build in this world.
Yeah, same.
Because I know we're here to do that.
Yes. From second one, I'm like, I met you and Mary, I'm like, Soul Fam. And you now officially, David, in your space. This was a great experience. I came here my first time for the ecstatic dance. It was so beautiful, and I'm happy to be back.
Thank you.
So thank you guys so much for having me.
Do you want to plug yourself, your website, how people can find you, class schedules, things like that?
Yeah, I guess the best way, our website, yellowbrickstudioparma.com. And I do a lot of my communication through Instagram. It's just kind of where I feel home. We have a good like global following too on the Instagram space. So Yellow Brick Studio on Instagram. And yeah, if you're local, stop by, come in, receive. Yeah.
Good. I want to.
Beautiful. We'll post links to all that on the
links in
Spotify
the description.
and YouTube.
Links in the description.
And then you can find us at moshilove.org. We are working on a membership drive and to help create abundance to open our first of many healing centers.
Yes.
Call it in, speak it.
And eventually we'll be starting Moshiville. We'll have a whole community of healers where people can come from all over the world.
Moshiville.
Yeah, Moshiville. Yeah, it's good. We're just going to create our
population. All is one.
Yeah, population. All is one. I love it.
I love it.
Also, don't forget to visit your Kava bar. Support the Kava community, and if you're local and around here, come on over here to North Olmsted and check out Sacred Waters. It's amazing. There's some events we do here sometimes. The Positive Pineapple does. You can find us at thepositivepineapple.org. And I think we have one coming up here in a couple days, but we're going to be doing some here. We're going to have some other stuff happening here. Moshi, we're putting together some events and things, so stick around.
Watch the magic happen.
Brittany, I love you. Dave, I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you.
That means thank you, I love you, a dove from my heart. Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.
This has been the Quantum Shamans presented by Moshi with David and Anthony. We look forward to seeing you next week for more insight into who you are and your place in the universe.